not speaking falsehood. Here, Bhante, a certain person having given up speaking falsehood refrains from falsehood when questioned as a witness before a council, before a congregation, in the midst of relatives, in the midst of a guild or company, in the midst of the royal court or a court of law, and summoned and questioned as a witness thus, "Come now, man, tell us what you know." Not knowing, he says he knows not, and knowing, he says he knows. Having not seen, he says he did not see. Having seen, he says that he saw. Not consciously telling a lie, thus for his own sake, for the sake of others, or even for a small material gain. So it's always discuss the truth as necessary. Next, having given up divisive speech, he refrains from divisive speech. What he has heard here from others, he does not repeat it there to others, to divide them. What he has heard there, he does not repeat it here to divide them. Thus he is one who unites the disunited, who discourages the divided from remaining so, in other words, not rejoicing in division. He is pleased at concord, enjoying concord, delighting in concord, saying words conducive to concord. He loves seeing people staying together, being united. Next, not using harsh words. Having given up harsh speech, he refrains from harsh speech. He utters words that are gentle, pleasant to the ear, loving, touching the heart, urbane or refined, delighting to the multitude, pleasing to the multitude. And of course, you like to add helpful to concentration, which is also in the previous, the opposite definition of this speech. Then, next one, not speaking frivolously. Having given up frivolous chatter, he refrains from frivolous chatter. He speaks at the right time, what is true, what is beneficial, what is the teaching, what is the discipline. He speaks words worth treasuring at the right time, well-founded, well-defined, or not rambling, connected with the goal of spiritual liberation. Right? So this is an example of useful talk, in other words. So this is speech. So we have dealt with bodily action, verbal action, and now the third one is mental conduct. Section 7. Bhikshus, mental conduct is of two kinds, I said, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. And this mental conduct is either the one or the other. So what does this mean? Okay. And then 7.3. What kind of mental conduct, Bhante, when resorted to, unwholesome states increase and wholesome states decrease? Covetousness. Here, Bhante, a person is covetous. He covets, or in other words, desires, the possessions of others that are of service to them, thinking, oh, may what belongs to others become mine. So he lusts after things of others. Or on a simpler level, he might compare himself with others. Or someone has got a big car, big house, whatever, so I want that too. Now, opposite of that is ill will. Furthermore, he is one with a heart of ill will, a mind of wicked thoughts, thinking, may these beings be killed or slaughtered or wiped out or destroyed or not exist. Violent words, in other words. So these are both to be avoided. And then what's to be practiced? So this is the next section. 7.7. Non-covetousness. Here, Bhante, a certain person is not covetous. He covets not the possession of others that are of service to them, thinking, oh, may what belongs to others become mine. So he's just kind of detached. Non-ill will. Here, Bhante, a certain person is one with a heart free of ill will, a mind without wicked thoughts, thinking, may these beings be free from hate, may they be free from suffering, may they be free from evil or from bad, may they continue to be happy. Right? These are very familiar words. They are words of loving kindness. So this is on a mental level. These are quite familiar things, right? Then we come to something new. Section 8. the arising of thought. Bhikshus, the arising of thought is of two kinds, I say, to be resorted to or not to be resorted to. And this arising of thought is the one or the other. So, what does this mean? 8.3. What kind of arising of thought, Bhante, when resorted to, unwholesome states increase and wholesome states decrease? So here again, thoughts connected with covetousness. The moment you notice that, in other words, nip it in the bud. So here is we are going earlier. Once you notice this kind of thought arising, at once let it go. There's another teaching elsewhere. It's called the watching the sign and the features, nimitta and anuvyanjana. Okay? The moment you notice the sign, the first sign of a negative thought coming, if you are mindful, you can notice that, let it go. That's the meaning here. Huh? Same thing, ill will. You notice this negative thought coming. Right? He's one. So this one is a negative one. He's one with ill will. He dwells with the mind attended by ill will. He is one who is vexed or annoyed. He dwells with the mind attended by vexation. So once you allow this thought to come, it overwhelms our mind. So you have to let it go as soon as it arises. So what we should practice is the opposite of this. The moment you notice a thought of desire, wanting what others have, let it go immediately. So the heart is unattended by covetousness. 22. He is one with the heart free from ill will. He dwells with the heart unattended by ill will. So in this case, notice the arising of the thought. Let it go. Next, section 9 or 9.1.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Just now you said there are 10 causes of unwholesome action, right? Actually, there are only 9. 3 of
Oh yes.
3 of speech, 2 of the mind.
Here, yes, one is missing. Okay. Here only 9 given, not 10. It is a different pattern. There are the 9 causes of action, actually, not 10, sorry. And then you add other aspects. Here, I think the idea here is the focus more is on the mind, if you notice. Right? Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah? The right view is missing.
Yeah.
Right? You know why? Because all the rest deals with right view actually. So in a sense it's not missing. It's still right view is expanded into greater detail. So this way, if you look carefully, very often you find everything is there, unless the Buddha has a reason to just give a certain section of the teaching, because the other person already understood the missing section. So we got to be aware of that. Okay, next is a gain in perception, right? Section 9. So what's the meaning of that statement on gain in perception to be resorted to, not to be resorted to? We begin in section 9.3. What kind of perception are not to be resorted to? Here again, the two same words, covetousness, ill will. So when you perceive something, when you recognize something, and in other words, here, it's not just, in the first case, this view just arises in your mind, unprompted by external stimulus. Whereas in the case of perception, there is something outside that strikes you, that attracts your attention. That's called perception. Okay? There's something out there. And then you look at it, this idea of wanting it arises in your mind. Whereas in the first case, it is your own internal idea going on. And then same thing, you see something, you don't like it. You either like it, you don't like it in a strong way. And these are to be avoided. This is actually a very healthy practice. So it prevents you from having very negative emotions, in other words. And perception to be resorted to, those that let go of covetousness, and those that do not have ill will. On a positive way, cultivate loving kindness. Then we go on to the next one. 10. gain in view. Bhikshus, here again in view. Notice a view mentioned here. No? Again, what's to be resorted to was not to be resorted to. 10.5, it says wrong views not to be resorted to. And wrong view is defined here. 10.5. Here, Bhante, a certain person holds such a view, thinking there is nothing given, nothing offered, nothing sacrificed. Here, the meaning means there's no virtue, no goodness in being generous, in charity. It's opposite of what the Buddha teaches. The Buddha said, no giving is without fruit. And the second wrong view is there is no fruit or result of good action or bad action. In other words, good and bad are all the way we think. We often hear people saying this. No? There's no fruit, no coming results. This is a rejection of karma. There is no this world, no next world. So this only life and no future, no hereafter. There is no mother, no father. Rejection of the family, rejection of parenthood. This is what defines humanity. Because if you reject mother, father, then this idea of humanity is gone. Society is not possible. We're talking about ethics here, because ethics make society possible. So, and the very bedrock of the family, and then of the society, of country, if you like, is this idea of parenthood. If there are no parents, no children, no family, no society, no country, and so on. It goes like that. Yeah? And of course, you can go further and say if you're not able to identify mother, father, and there's no way of knowing how people are related to each other, and people will not be able to live in a harmonious way. There are no spontaneously born beings. Okay, like as I mentioned before, this is one sentence that has troubled me for many decades, and I realized these last few weeks, this simply refers to, in this context, to rebirth. That rebirth is not possible. So these are people who reject karma and rebirth. Okay? And the last one, there are no recluses or Brahmins who, living rightly and practicing rightly, having directly known and realized for themselves this world and the hereafter, proclaim them. This is a very interesting statement on the possibility of goodness in religion. This doesn't say all religions are good and right, but it's saying that it is possible through religion to find good people and goodness, in other words. And anyone who practices the right way, no matter what religion, they will realize the truth. I was reading this very interesting article last week where you have this common retreat between Catholics and other Christian nuns. And in this case, it's interesting, I think they're all nuns. And yeah, I think there are a few monks, mostly nuns, and the Buddhist nuns and monks. And it's more like a Buddhist retreat actually, because the Catholics and the Christian monastics, they were practicing meditation, all kinds of meditation, vipassana meditations and meditation and so on. This is in the West, by the way. So they were struggling how to bring back this contemplative tradition in their various congregations, various denominations and so on. So there were different views on how this should be done. One view is, of course, based on the Christian view. We take something with the Buddhists and then just make it Christian. Another one is we practice them separately. This is a Christian way, this is a Buddhist way, and it's okay for us to practice both. And you have, for example, in the West, there are many Zen Catholics, and people practice both. I think it's a very interesting idea to be able to practice both. I don't know how they do that, but apparently it's with meditation. Okay? So meditation is what they love, because it's something you don't see in the theistic religions. This very profound idea of getting deep meditation, free of thoughts. Okay? I suppose the ancient Christian mystics have experienced this, like St. John the Baptist, Saint Teresa, Avila, and so on. But then they didn't have the vocabulary to understand these very deep, profound experiences. All they can say is being touched by God. So that's the best they can say, but nothing more describing, for example, using the language of meditation that the Buddha has used. But these are clearly dhyana experiences, with which the Buddhists are very familiar with. So, what this sentence here says is that anyone who practices some kind of meditation will experience this inner peace. And this is beyond religion. Your inner peace is nameless. If you experience it, you will know there's something good there. So, what is against, if this wrong view that all these things are not possible, should be avoided. And then on the positive side, this is worth reading. What is to be practiced, like 10.8. Here, Bhante, a certain person holds such right views, thinking there is what is given, what is offered, what is sacrificed. There is fruit or result of good actions or bad actions. There is this world, there is the next world. There is mother, there is father. There are beings that are reborn, or there is rebirth. There are recluses and Brahmins. In our modern term, we can say there are priests and monks who, living rightly and practicing rightly, having directly known and realized for themselves this world and the hereafter, proclaim them. In other words, there is possibility of goodness in religion. And this is where the unwholesome states will decrease and wholesome states will increase. And then the last one is gain in personhood. What about the two aspects here? To be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Sāriputta explains as follows. 11.5. Bhante, when a person generates a gain in personhood that has affliction, not bringing about spiritual accomplishment, unwholesome states increase and wholesome states decrease. Then the next one, 11.6. Bhante, when a person generates a gain in personhood that has no affliction, bringing about spiritual accomplishment, unwholesome states increase, wholesome states increase. Okay, here we have a bit of a profound statement here because it talks about sainthood and high level of attainment. Affliction here means suffering. Affliction means here the mind is unable, is not awakened, the mind is still troubled by worldly things. So if you are born into that kind of rebirth, of course it's very difficult to clear the mind, to be awakened. So that kind of rebirth where you do not have suffering, here the personhood refers to the attaining of sainthood, becoming stream winner, Vanchitana, non-returner, and Arhat in other words. Because this is the path of non-affliction. Well, in a sense, we can practice non-affliction even in this life itself. We can keep the precepts well with loving kindness. Then you find, even when you are troubled by, say, you unmindfully broke a precept, or you find, even though you do the right things, people are troubling you, but your mind is calm. You are untroubled despite the world troubling you. So to that extent, you have no affliction. And you build it up until you attain the various level of sainthood, if you like. So Sāriputta finishes here, and the Buddha says, Section 13, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sāriputta. It is good, Sāriputta, that in what has been briefly spoken by me of this matter, without elaborating its meaning in detail, you thus understand the meaning in detail. So the Buddha endorses him. And then the Buddha gives the whole exposition again. Everything is repeated for the benefit of the monks who are listening, which we won't repeat, it's already here. And everything finishes right up to second cycle, page 158. Here we have the 12 sense bases. So here the Buddha simplifies the whole idea by using the model of the 12 sense bases. 6 internal sense bases 6 external sense objects. Let me read 22, which will explain. Okay? Form cognizable by the eye is of 2 kinds. I'd say to be resorted to or not to be resorted to. Okay? Form. Form are what we see with our eyes, meaning shape, colors. Some things you should continue seeing, makes you feel peaceful. Some you should not. Sound, cognizable by the ear, is of 2 kinds. To be resorted to, not to be resorted to. There are 2 kinds of sounds. One we should pay attention to, the other one don't pay attention to. Smells, cognizable by the nerves, is of 2 kinds, I say. To be resorted to, not to be resorted to. Taste also, same thing. Taste, cognizable by the tongue. To be resorted to or not to be resorted to. Touch, cognizable by the body, is of 2 kinds. To be resorted to or not to be resorted to. Mind object, or simply your thought, cognizable by the mind, is of 2 kinds. To be resorted to or not to be resorted to. Now you may wonder why the sutta is so particular. For example, form, cognizable by the eye. Sound, cognizable by the ear. The object and the organ or the faculty is always mentioned together. There's a very simple reason there. There's one sutta dealing with this where the Buddha says the senses work in such a way that they do not overlap. The eye does not hear things. The nose does not see things, for example. Synesthesia is not possible. But then the scientists tell us it's possible, okay? So, well, the answer is that both are right. If synesthesia occurs, synesthesia means the senses overlap, It occurs on a mental level, but never on the basic sense level itself. That's the meaning. It is in the mind that you see colors as sounds, for example, but not at the ear level. So here, let me just summarize, because everything is repeated here. So form, sound, smell, taste, touch, mind objects. These are the 6 what I call sense bases, your senses. 5 physical senses plus the mind. If any of these bring on unwholesome states, make you feel bad, unhappy, and do bad things to body, speech, and mind, they have to be avoided. And if they bring on happiness, wholesomeness, helps you to focus, meditate, then they should be resorted to. Alright, so I simplified this. Of course, you can read this as a reflection if you like. Okay, so that section is done. Any question on this section because I've shortened it? Is it clear enough to you? In other words, be aware, make sure your senses serve you with happiness, not with pain. Then we come to the last part. The bottom of page 161, third cycle, proper resorts. It's actually addressing to the monks, but let's see what can we learn from it. Look at page 162. Here is the Buddha talking again, and then the Sāriputta gives the details. Notice section 39, the Buddha addressing Sāriputta. Sāriputta, the robe is of 2 kinds, I say, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. So here the Buddha is addressing the monks directly. He says there are 2 kinds of robes, and one you can wear, one you should not wear. This is the Vinaya rules already. One kind of robe will be luxurious and not worthy of a monk. The other one is simple robes for the monk. Alms food is of 2 kinds, I say, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Right? Food. The monks should eat simple food and not kind of, ask for special kind of food, which are kind of luxurious. Sāriputta, lodging is of 2 kinds, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Right here again, monastics should live in simple monasteries. Well, this is what the Buddha teaches. The next one, a village is of two kinds, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Here is resorted to means going for alms. Certain kinds of places, especially where there are violent people or people of low morality, the monks should avoid that kind of place. That's the meaning. Sāriputta, a market town is of two kinds, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Now here, the mention of market town is very interesting. It shows that at that time, this kind of centers were building up in India. Commerce was rising, market town. Market towns arise at the crossroads, where people come, sell things, and then slowly they became settlements and then towns. And then they became cities. Sāriputta, a city is of two kinds, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Sāriputta, the country is of two kinds, to be resorted to and not to be resorted to. Here, country means countryside. Of course, it can also refer to a country as a whole, but I think it refers to the countryside, the rural area. A person is of two kinds, to be resorted to or not to be resorted to. So this advice for the monks. Let's look at the last one. The teaching all repeats itself. Right? Look at the last one on 48.1. Sāriputta, a person is of two kinds, I say, to be resorted to or not to be resorted to. So it is said by the Blessed One. In what connection is this said? Whatever kind of person, Bhante, when resorted to, unwholesome states increase, wholesome states decrease, such a person is not to be resorted to. In other words, avoid negative people. But whatever kind of person, Bhante, when resorted to, unwholesome states decrease, wholesome states increase. Such a person is to be resorted to. Alright? So the template is used for all the other 7 kinds of places also. So the Buddha endorses what Sāriputta says is very good, and the Buddha repeats everything, and then the sutta ends on page 166. Section 60. Sāriputta, if all the kshatriyas or nobles and politicians in our time were to thus understand in detail the meaning of what has been briefly spoken here, it would be for the good and happiness of all these kshatriyas for a long time. So here the Buddha is saying of all these politicians and upper class, the atas people, if they can understand this, even the short one, not necessarily the long one, they will live happily for a long time. Sāriputta, all the Brahmins, in other words, the priests and teachers were to understand even the short teaching here, they'll be happy for a long time. Then number 62, the business people, Vaisyas, the business class. Then the middle class. 63, the Shudras, the middle class workers, or the working class. What is the Buddha talking here? So there are basic things you should live by, basic moral code. If you don't, you're going to get yourself into a lot of trouble. I mean, you see today in the papers every day, almost every day there's someone from some important government department getting into trouble. Sometimes young people getting into trouble. Clever students getting into trouble, right? Because they lack a very important aspect of life, at least the moral conduct aspect. So no matter how intelligent or clever they are, they get caught. Right? So this is where it's good to be reminded. When I was in the universities, I always tell the students, I say, look, you are the most intelligent people in this country. You may have your degrees and so on. But remember, there's something that the universities don't teach you, that there are many things out there that don't belong to us. Just reflect, as the Buddha says to Sāriputta, this is not yours. Don't take it, let it go. So if you see something tempting, millions of dollars lying in front of you, it's not yours, let it go, don't take it, because you get into trouble. In very simple language, this is what the sutta is trying to say. There are some things not worth resorting to. It's not yours. What is ours is our own good karma, in other words. Then finally, Buddha says, 64, if Sāriputta, the world with its devas or gods, and its Mara, and with its Brahma, Brahma is the high god, capital G god, with its generation, with its recluses and Brahmins, its rulers and people, to thus understand in detail the meaning of what has been briefly spoken by me, it would be for the good and happiness of all the world, with devas, with its Mara, and with its Brahma, this generation, with its recluses and Brahmins, rulers and people for a long time. The Blessed One said this, the Venerable Sāriputta joyfully approved of the Blessed One's word. So the Buddha is talking about quality of life. In other words, you want to live happily, you must have some kind of moral worth, some kind of moral inclination. In other words, okay. All right. Right. We have any questions?
Number 63.
Okay.
Actually, the word sutra should be the low class in it.
63 Shudras, yes.
Should be the low class and not the middle class.
No, middle class is
Four classes.
our own time. Our time, there's no low class. Okay.
Another question on the
Yeah, sure.
deep meditation. Is there any advantage? Is there any disadvantage in developing deep meditation?
The kind of meditation that is not helpful to you. When some people go to deep meditation, then they cut themselves off from people over extended periods. That would not be helpful. I wouldn't say it's bad, but sometimes, for example, take the case of the Pratyeka Buddha, Pacceka Buddha. He's enlightened, but he's not capable of teaching the Dharma. One reason he didn't study the sutras of previous lives. And because society is hostile. Let's say you're born in Kuwait or Afghanistan, you can't have a sutta class like this, right? So it can be very difficult for them, right? So the kind of deep meditation that you go into makes you so happy. When you come out of it, you don't need anybody, you're very happy. But when people do come to you, you are still happy, and you're able to talk to them, even a simple sentence, feel very happy. That's the difference. For example, once I met this Ajahn Sumedho when he was much younger. This was like 35 years ago. I met him in Bangkok, and it was in section 5, there's Abbott's quarters. So as I sat down there, the typical, your leg put sideways for 2 hours, I remember. I sat there just like that, not saying a word, just listening to him talking. And he was talking to me about the Vinaya, mind you, just the Vinaya. It's not that he's talking any technicality, because I don't remember anything he said now, but I remember I felt really peaceful when I was sitting there with him for those 2 hours. So, no Vinaya is transmitted, but a lot of peace is transmitted that I've never forgotten my whole life. So this is something when you study the sutras. Maybe you tell yourself, I don't recall anything I studied in the sutras, but I know I feel this great peace in me. If you ask me what have I learned in the sutras all these years, I can't tell you. So many things, All that I can tell you is I felt really peaceful. That's good enough. Yeah?
You made a very interesting statement. There are $1 million out there. It is not yours to take. I think this is a problem in society today. The business person says there's $1 million out there to be made. It's yours. It's yours for the taking.
Exactly.
And then you may not want things, but the advertisers come along and create desire. This is modern economics, So how?
So that's what the sutta is telling us. You look at it and be wise. That's what the Buddha says. The moment you see the advertisement, that's called the sign, is it? Watch out for the sign. You see that, okay, turn away. That's how you don't get trapped, is it? No, the Buddha says the teaching is difficult. That is why he was reluctant to teach at first. I mean, the Buddha, when he was first enlightened, he was hesitant to teach, you see. He says, this world, I wonder if we can really understand all these things.
So if you're a serious Buddhist, you kind of engage in business. Because modern business and economics is about the legitimization of desire.
Well,
we need desire.
There's another way of looking at that, If you really want to be happy without being stressed, then you've got to be a Buddhist businessman. That's a big difference. You can get all the money, but you also have a kind of stress that goes with it. Now, can you imagine you can be rich without the stress? It's possible. Because wealth, they define wealth as having. But in Buddhism, we define wealth as being. That's the big difference. So when you think about that, you need to understand why the Buddhist conception of wealth is very important. The Buddha talks a lot about wealth. In fact, Buddhism in the Buddha's time and even up to today has been promoted mostly by the wealthy and by merchant class. Of course, now the scholars too, you see. But the scholars are also like merchants of knowledge, you know. I mean, they work for money, you know. So that's why they've got copyrights and they only reply to you if they think you are worth it, you know. I mean, if you say I'm a poor full-time Buddhist, they probably might not answer you. But so far, thankfully, many of the scholars I wrote to, most of them do answer when I ask for a paper or something. And those are the kind of scholars we respect. I remember there was one, this Robert Bella, you know, because he retired, he was giving his swan songs lecture, last lecture before he retired. You know, because the hall was crowded. There were like, I don't know, 500 people and people sitting on the floor all over the place where there's some space to sit down. That's his last lecture. And he's one of those very famous, world famous sociologists. And I attended his class also. And he's one lecturer who doesn't tell the class, I'm just an auditor. See, some lecturers will tell you, auditors, please don't write essays. We had no time to check your essays. But he doesn't mind. In fact, I never thought he would even read my essays. I wrote the essay he requested. And mind you got like 500 students and you read all the essays. And he even wrote a remark that because what I wrote was against his theory. I said, I don't agree with his theory. And he writes, he says, oh, now I see why you disagree with me. And I think you're right. I said, wow, for you to say that, I said, that's just amazing. And of course, it's just a point. It's not like I've debunked his whole theory, you know. But the idea that he listens and he actually engages you on that level, you find that's a real scholar. Someone you really respect. Okay. Any other question? All right, so we'll end here then. Let us sit quietly for a short while, short reflection. Whenever we study such suttas, these are moments for inner reflection, for moments of peace. These are instructions on how we can prepare ourselves to calm our minds, to look within ourselves for the answers, whatever answer that may be. But the peace must be built up, must be worked for. And this peace is possible through our own efforts, through our own action, if we follow all these instructions. Reflecting in this way is good verbal karma, but the power of such karma may our minds quickly focus. May our meditations be calm and clear even in this life itself. Above all, may in this life itself we attain spiritual liberation and this strengthening. In these moments of peace, let us send our loving kindness to all our teachers, to all those people we know or love to us. Even to those people inimical to us, may the Dhamma touch their hearts. May they be closer to the Dhamma and awaken within themselves. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.